Hey there. Welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be looking at condo ownership in Ontario. And, judging by all the stuff you've sent over articles, guides, you've been doing some research. So that's really good on your part because as we're going to see, there's a lot to think about before you jump into condo life.
Yeah, absolutely. Owning a condo is definitely not just about the unit itself. It's about being a part of this larger community. That comes with shared responsibilities and sometimes shared headaches too.
Speaking of headaches, that case in Toronto where the condo building got hit with that $14 million special assessment, that is crazy. I mean, imagine getting hit with a bill for 30 grand or even 42
Yeah.
grand, especially if you're a senior on a fixed income. Thinking that your condo was part of your worry-free retirement plan.
Right. That case is a really stark reminder about condo governance
Hmm.
and finances and just why they're so crucial. And it just highlights what can happen when, maintenance and repairs are delayed and financial management isn't really top of mind.
Okay, so walk us through it. How did it get so bad? How did things escalate to a $14 million emergency?
Well, this building was basically a ticking time bomb. They had a shockingly small operating fund, only $5,000.
Seriously.
And get this, a reserve fund of just $1.75?
I think I have more spare change in my car.
Yeah, it's almost funny if it wasn't so serious. But it gets worse. On top of that, they had almost $9 million in debt. So it's just kicking the can down the road,
Yeah.
deferring essential maintenance to keep the fees low. And as we see, it can backfire spectacularly.
Yeah, ouch. So this wasn't just a case of a few bad apples on the condo board. It seems like there was a systemic issue of ignoring the building's long-term needs.
hmm
So is this a common thing? Should all condo owners be worried that they could get hit with a surprise assessment?
Not necessarily. I mean, this case in Toronto is pretty extreme, but it does show us how important healthy reserve funds are. Think of the reserve fund as like a savings account for the building. It's there to cover those major repairs and replacements, like a new roof or upgrading the elevators.
Yeah, that makes sense. So responsible condo boards should be making this a priority, even if it means, gradually raising fees over time.
Exactly. Tony Booney, actually, he's a condo law expert here in Ontario, and he argues that reasonable fee increases are super important to keep those funds healthy and to avoid those massive special assessments down the line. It's kind of like preventative medicine for your building.
A little pain now can save a lot of heartache later.
Right. So what can condo owners do to make sure that their building is on the right track? I mean, most people aren't financial experts or building engineers.
You don't have to be. The key is to be informed and engaged. Go to those board meetings, even if they seem boring. It's your chance to really ask questions and to understand how your money is being managed.
So don't just be a passive resident. Take an active role in the community.
Right.
Right. But what happens when the board itself is the problem? I'm thinking about that CBC article you sent about that condo on Hillcrest Avenue where residents were getting harassed with legal threats for these really minor infractions. Right. That's a perfect example of overreach and abuse of power. The board and the management company in that case, they were basically using legal letters as weapons and creating this climate of fear. Residents were afraid to even have guests over or let their kids play in the hallways because they were worried about getting fined or legal action.
It's turning your home into a prison. So what was going on there? Was it just a power trip? Or was there something more sinister at play?
Hard to say for sure, but it is a reminder that even with all the regulations, things can go wrong when a few people have too much power. And unfortunately, condo boards aren't immune to petty disputes, personal agendas, or even just straight-up corruption.
Yikes. So what can condo owners do in those situations? Are there legal protections?
Thankfully, yes.
Hmm.
In Ontario, there are three key pieces of legislation that are on your side: the Condominium Act, the Condominium Management Services Act, and the Ontario New Home Warranties Plan Act.
Okay, so let's break those down one by one. What does the Condominium Act cover?
So think of the Condominium Act as the rulebook for condo living in Ontario. It sets out how condo corporations are created, managed, and governed, things like board elections, reserve fund requirements, and how disputes are handled between residents or with the board itself.
So it's like the foundation. It sets the ground rules for the whole condo community.
Right.
Right. So what about the Condominium Management Services Act? Is that about property managers?
Exactly. It regulates how condo managers and management companies operate, so they have to be licensed. And they have to stick to a certain code of ethics. This helps to protect owners from people who aren't qualified or who aren't behaving ethically.
So it's adding that extra layer of accountability. It's making sure that the people who are actually handling the building's day-to-day operations are following the rules. So what about that third one? The Ontario New Home Warranties Plan Act. Does that apply to all condo owners or just new builds?
It's mainly for new builds. Yeah. It provides a warranty program that covers certain building defects, and it also protects deposits if a builder goes bankrupt. It even outlines a process for resolving disputes with vendors during construction.
So is some extra peace of mind for anyone buying into a new development. But
Yeah.
what about those older buildings where things might be starting to fall apart? Are there resources for owners who are concerned about the state of their building?
Absolutely. And on the topic of resources, there's another really important document for anyone buying a condo. It's the CAO Condo Buyer's Guide.
The CAO. What's that stand for?
It's the Condominium Authority of Ontario. It's this independent body that provides information and resources for both condo owners and corporations. Their Condo Buyer's Guide is amazing for anyone who's thinking about buying a condo. It walks you through the whole process, step by step, explains key concepts, and highlights important things to look for in those governing documents, which can be pretty dense.
So that's like required reading for anyone, even just thinking about owning a condo. And they also emphasize that 10-day cooling off period.
Right. That's right. It gives buyers the chance to back out if they have any second thoughts after they've reviewed the agreement. Or if they just discover any red flags, it's there to protect buyers from making a rash decision.
So that cooling off period is crucial. It's a chance to step back and make sure that this is really the right investment for you. All this talk about regulations and laws, it's definitely reassuring. But are there still ways for things to go wrong, even with all these safeguards in place?
Unfortunately, yes. There's always a risk of corruption, even with all these regulations. And that brings us to the kind of darker side of condo management, a world where unethical behavior and financial mismanagement can wreak havoc on communities.
Ooh. And we're going to explore that world after a quick break. Stay tuned. And we're back, diving even deeper into the world of condo ownership here in Ontario. Before the break, we were talking about how even with all these regulations in place, corruption can still be a problem.
Yeah, it's true. There are always going to be people who try to exploit the system for their own gain, and condos are not immune to that.
That article that you sent about corrupt property managers, it was really eye-opening. That story about Manzoor Khan, who basically embezzled $20 million from those condo corporations. I mean, it's just crazy how someone can betray the trust of so many people and get away with it for so long.
Yeah, that case really exposed the vulnerabilities in the system, even with the updated Condominium Act. And that regulatory body, the CMRAO, the Condominium Management Regulatory Authority of Ontario, they oversee condo managers.
So even with those safeguards, there are still cracks in the system.
There can be, which is why it's so important for condo owners to be aware of the potential for fraud and to really be vigilant about protecting their investment.
So what are some of the red flags that condo owners should be watching out for? What are like the most common types of corruption that they might encounter?
So one of the most common scams of kickbacks. This is where a property manager might collude with a contractor to inflate the price of a service, or even just bill for work that never got done, and then they pocket the difference. And the condo corporation, which is,
The owners,
yeah.
they end up footing that inflated bill. So it's basically legalized stealing, just hidden in these complex contracts and invoices.
Right. Are there other schemes that we should be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. Fraudulent contracts are another common one. So this could involve using shell companies or creating fake invoices to siphon money from the condo corporation.
So, a property manager could create a fake company and award themselves a contract for a service that doesn't exist, and then just pocket the money.
Exactly. And then there's also the more straightforward mismanagement of funds. So that's where money that's meant for legitimate expenses, like maintenance and repairs, it gets diverted for personal use.
It's scary how easily this can happen. The article mentioned that it can be really difficult to detect these schemes, even with the updated regulations. Why is that?
Well, fraudsters are always coming up with new ways to hide what they're doing. And often, condo boards, they're not equipped to uncover these really sophisticated schemes.
So what can condo owners do to protect themselves? It feels like we're talking about a bit of a David and Goliath situation here. It might seem that way, but you as a condo owner, you do have power, and there are a number of things that you can do if you think that something shady is going on.
You give us the inside scoop. What steps can we take?
So first and foremost, communication is key. If you have concerns, don't be afraid to raise them with the board. The CAO, the Condominium Authority of Ontario, they actually have some really helpful email and letter templates on their website to kind of guide you through that process. You don't have to be a legal expert to communicate your concerns effectively.
So no need to feel intimidated or unsure about how to approach the board.
Exactly. You have the right to ask questions and to demand transparency. And if your concerns aren't being addressed, then you can requisition an owner's meeting. to discuss the issue further.
So there's power in numbers. If enough owners are concerned, they can force the issue to be addressed.
That's right. Yeah. Remember, the board is elected to serve the owners, and they are accountable to you. And if you need more support or information, you can always turn to the CAO for guidance. Their website is an amazing resource for condo owners. It covers pretty much everything, from your rights and responsibilities to dispute resolution processes.
It sounds like they're a valuable ally for condo owners. So what happens if the problem goes beyond the board? Are there other organizations that we can turn to?
Absolutely. If your concerns involve the property manager specifically, you can contact the CMRAO, the Condominium Management Regulatory Authority of Ontario. They're responsible for licensing and disciplining condo managers.
So they're like the watchdog for the property management industry.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, for specific disputes, you have the option of going to the Condominium Authority Tribunal, also known as CIT. This tribunal is a more streamlined and cost-effective way to resolve certain condo-related disputes.
What kind of disputes does CAA handle?
So they can handle a wide range of issues, anything from condo records, noise complaints, pet restrictions, even parking disputes.
Wow. So that covers a lot of ground. There's a specific avenue for resolving those common condo conflicts.
There is. Condo living is all about community, and sometimes disagreements happen. But there are processes in place to address those issues fairly and effectively.
It's good to know that there's a system there to support condo owners and help them figure out all these complex situations. We've talked a lot about the challenges and the potential problems with condo ownership, but let's not forget the positives. So what are some things that make condo living so appealing to so many people?
So condo living, it offers this lifestyle that a lot of people find attractive, especially those who are looking for something low maintenance and with lots of amenities.
Okay, paint us a picture. What are some of those perks?
So imagine this. You come home after a long day, and instead of having to mow the lawn or shovel snow, you head straight for the building's rooftop terrace for a barbecue with your neighbors. Or maybe you unwind with a swim in the pool or work out in the fitness center. You don't even have to leave the building.
That does sound pretty idyllic, especially if you're not into yard work.
Right. And let's not forget about security. A lot of condo buildings have controlled access and security personnel, which can give you a sense of safety and peace of mind. That's pretty hard to find in other types of housing.
That's a big plus, especially for people who live alone or travel a lot, you know. It's nice to know that your home is secure. And you mentioned community. Is that something that condo living promotes?
Oh, for sure. Living in close proximity to your neighbors can really create a sense of community and belonging that you don't always find in, sprawling suburban neighborhoods. You might bump into your neighbors in the elevator, share a cup of coffee in the lobby, or even organize social events in the building's common areas.
So condo living can be a great way to meet new people and build relationships.
It definitely can be. And for those who are downsizing or just prefer a more minimalist lifestyle, condos offer that benefit of less space to clean and maintain.
Less housework, more time to enjoy life.
That does sound appealing.
It can be. Condo living can be a great option for people who value convenience, community, and a more simplified lifestyle. Okay, so we've explored the good and the bad of condo ownership. What's the key takeaway here for our listeners?
I think the most important lesson is that condo ownership, it's not a passive investment. It takes active participation, vigilance, and a willingness to engage in your community.
It's about being informed, staying connected, knowing your rights.
Exactly. By understanding the rules and being involved in your condo community and holding the board accountable, you can really help create a more positive living experience for yourself and for your neighbors.
That's good advice. Before we wrap up this section, what final words of wisdom would you give to someone who's thinking about buying a condo in Ontario?
I would say do your homework. Really review all the governing documents, get familiar with the financial records, and don't be shy about asking questions. Lots of questions. This is a big financial decision.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you're making an informed choice.
Yeah, don't just rely on those glossy brochures and the model suites. Talk to people who live there. Go to a board meeting. Get a feel for the community and the board's track record.
Exactly. Remember, you're not just buying a physical space, you're buying into a community with shared responsibilities and shared governance.
So choose wisely. Do your due diligence and go in with your eyes wide open.
Exactly. Condo living can be a wonderful experience, but it's important to approach it with awareness and a commitment to actively participating in the community.
And on that note, we're going to come back and tackle the listener's final question about what they would do if they were in a condo-related predicament. Stay tuned. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into condo ownership in Ontario. And It's amazing how much we've learned just from looking at the stuff that you sent over.
It is pretty cool how these different sources, from personal stories to official guides to news articles, it really paints this picture of what condo life is like and some of the potential problems you can run into.
Yeah, and those stories about the condo board drama and those corrupt property managers, that's wild. It's like a real-life soap opera, but
Yeah.
with real consequences.
It just shows you that people can be unpredictable and that power can be misused, even when there are rules and safeguards in place.
Definitely gives you a lot to think about. Now, you asked a really interesting question. At the end of your last email, what would you do if you were in one of these tricky condo situations,
Hmm.
like the ones we've been talking about?
Hmm. That is a great question. And it's one that every condo owner should think about. You know, if I was in a situation where the board wasn't listening to my concerns, or if I thought something shady was going on, my first step would be to document everything.
So you'd be like gathering evidence,
Yeah.
putting on your detective hat.
Exactly. Keep a record of all my interactions with the board. Emails, letters, notes from meetings. I'd collect any financial statements. And I wouldn't hesitate to take pictures or videos of any building problems that were being ignored.
So you'd be building a case file,
Hmm.
just in case you needed to show it to someone.
Right. And I'd also talk to a lawyer who specializes in condo law, just to make sure I understood my rights and options.
It's always good to get expert advice in these situations. Make sure you know what your rights are and how you can use them.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of collective action. I'd reach out to my neighbors, see if they were having similar problems.
Strength in numbers.
Right.
A united front is always more effective.
Absolutely. If enough owners are on board, you could request a meeting to address those concerns or even start a petition to show how widespread the issue is.
So it's about empowering yourself as a condo owner, using your voice to make positive change.
Exactly, condo living. It's about sharing responsibility, and that includes holding the board accountable and working together to make sure you have a thriving community.
So knowledge, vigilance, and community engagement, they're all crucial for navigating this world of condo ownership.
Those are excellent guiding principles. And I'd add, don't be afraid to speak up. Your voice matters. And by speaking up, you're not just protecting yourself, you could be protecting your neighbors too.
Well said. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into condo ownership in Ontario. We've looked at the legal stuff, the potential problems, and the resources available to condo owners.
It's been really interesting exploring the ins and outs of shared living and all the responsibility that comes with it.
Hopefully this deep dive has been helpful and insightful. Remember, condo ownership can be a great experience, but go in informed, engaged, and ready to advocate for yourself.
And if you ever find yourself in a tricky situation, remember you're not alone. There are resources to help you figure things out.
A huge thank you to you, our expert, for all your knowledge and insights. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was mine. It's always great to talk about these important issues.
And to you, our listener, thanks for joining us. We encourage you to keep digging into those sources you sent. And check out the Condominium Authority of Ontario's website. They've got tons of great information on condo living.
Knowledge is power. An informed condo owner is an empowered condo owner.
And that wraps up another episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.